Professor Kevin Curran, a regular guest on this programme. He's a professor of cybersecurity at Ulster University, but I don't think that title gives you your full range of skills, capabilities and knowledge, Professor Kevin. How are you getting on? Good morning to you.
Good morning, Greg.
Are you like I and many listening? Some, for others, it's straight over the head and a bore fest. But for others, it's like really quite fascinating. How closely are you tracking the emergence of Mark Zuckerberg's Threads and what kind of impact it's having on Elon Musk's Twitter, but more generally speaking, the social media landscape?
Yeah, I mean, it's astonishing. It's the fastest growing app to ever, hit 100 million. And a lot of apps have never hit 100 million, and it's only been 5 days. And of course, then Twitter was in trouble anyway because Elon Musk paid 44 billion for it. But earlier, before Threads was even released, it was revalued at 15 billion. So that's a huge dip of 30 billion he's lost, really.
And I think, he can take the hand out of Blue Sky or Mastodon and what have you, but this is a different kettle of fish altogether because it's Mark Zuckerberg's backing it. He's laid out quite clearly the kind of space that it wants it to be. He's pitching it as a completely different experience to Twitter, and I think Elon Musk is rattled, and quite rightly so.
He is, yeah. I mean, it really is a copycat. I mean, it's missing a few features like direct messages, and people are still complaining about that you can't see your users, the people you follow in chronological order, but Meta have come back and said that they're going to readdress it. So the clever thing, of course, that Meta did was linking this with Instagram. So it made the bootstrapping, in other words, signing up to the service so easy, really. You can do it within a minute, and it copies across your profile from Instagram and your photos, and then you have your followers who you already have on Instagram. So it overcame the biggest problem for new social networks, is the bootstrapping problem, really, because we know that the most useless thing ever invented was the telephone until someone else got a telephone, and then there's a network effect. The more people that got it, the more useful the network becomes again. So in the past, where social media, other social networks have appeared, me and other techs would go there and sign up and send invitations, and of course you have to wait for your friends, and then by the time you go back, everyone's forgotten about it. But this really made it easy. And of course now he's complaining again. He's complaining about a lot, Elon, but he's complaining that engineers from Twitter, even though he fired half his company, have been working on this, really. But it really is just like someone took the source code for Twitter and just put a white background and put it online.
Yeah, but he also tweeted at that time, when he got rid of all the staff, something really quite derogatory, suggesting who would take them on or where would they go and work, and lo and behold, Meta found a place for them. Some people are saying, though, what's the big deal? You've got 2 billion active users on Instagram, and you've got 100 million of them to click a button out of curiosity, that it's sort of like artificially successful, and it's not really necessarily an indication of how long it might hang around.
Exactly, because I go to it a few times a day to see, do I find it as useful as Twitter? And not yet, of course. People are generally posting hello or stuff I'm not so much interested in. But of course, I build up the accounts that I follow, usually, news outlets and whatever else on Twitter. And I haven't put the effort into doing that as much on Threads so far. But at the moment, I'm not finding it as useful as Twitter. So again, it remains to be seen, whether or not it will be a success or whether it's just something that people are hopping to at the moment, because, to see it as a new water cooler of the internet again. But it does have a chance, that's for sure, because a lot of people are cheesed off with Twitter, because generally now the number of posts, you're limited to 600 a day. And of course, someone who's blue verified, and they're pushing the verification badge very much on Twitter, where you sign up for £8 a month here in the UK. So again, but that's cheesed a lot of people off, and there have been outages. So what could happen if you had an outage maybe for a day or two or whatever, severe one on Twitter, people could be flocking there, because it is easier for content generators or, people who post content, really, to just simply post to both platforms. And that's what I do in my interviews now. Like all the other platforms, I just simply post it there. So if there was a major outage in Twitter or something else happens really where he cheeses off a lot more people, people could start moving there really because it has the functionality now. It has 95% of the functionality of Twitter, and maybe some people like the fact it doesn't have as many stats there. It's not as busy, the interface as well, so that could work in their favor.
What do the public want, Kevin? And how do we figure that out? But anyway, I want your opinion on it because, I mean, what Twitter used to be, it used to be a place whereby you would go on, you followed who you followed, and primarily, you know, it was news. There was nothing else there. There was other bits of noise, but it wasn't very noisy. Now what you have, and I suppose there's the For You and there's the following, but anyway, I think a lot of people sit in the For You. A lot of stuff is pushed towards you, and it's a lot of toxic stuff. Now, that's only toxic if you find it toxic. Other people might love it, right? But, you know, he's actively, I mean, he tweeted there within the last couple of minutes, here you can be who you want to be. You know, you might get insulted here, but at least it's real. You know, as I said yesterday, and he might live to regret it to some extent, the BBC presenter story, he having a go at the BBC, put the Jimmy Savile article in underneath it. Now, as it turns out, that story might become really quite problematic for an awful lot of people. And then you go over to Threads, and, you know, there's the inspirational quotes there, and there's some other content there. A lot more famous people are there, but it's a very sort of sanitized, censored space. But then you've got the chaos of Twitter. It's really going to settle on what the public wants. I don't know if people want to be exposed to how angry and insulting Twitter can be all of the time. And I think they might see, as sanitized and censored as it is, Threads as just a better place just to chill out on your phone.
It's possible. Again, it comes down to the moderation applied, because Threads could easily become, you know, full of extreme left-wing, right-wing views, really. So it depends on moderation. And that's one of the things that Twitter, you know, got rid of a lot of the moderation team, really. So there are people annoyed about what's being viewed there. And of course, the advertisers pulled out of Twitter because they didn't want their content to be seen along a right-wing posts as well. But Threads could easily become, you know, cesspool as well. And it depends. Yeah, Twitter is just different than the other ones again. But in some ways, they're saying that a lot of content people on Instagram are saying that they're seeing a dip in their traffic on Instagram because there's only so many hours in a day. So another social media app comes along, is going to detract from the other social media apps as well. So in some ways, again, I know at the moment you can't really advertise on Threads again, but of course they're saying that they'll bring that in the future, maybe when it reaches 1 billion. But at the moment, it's not easy for them to monetize any content on there. Whereas on Twitter, you can actually. That they've introduced ways for content generators to, you know, to advertise and make money from their posts.
I think this will all come down to, you see, there's this presumption that people don't like censorship or rules, but, you know, if you've got two bars, one beside each other on the high street, you can go into one and there's no censorship and everyone's doing whatever the hell they like. You can go in there and join them, or you could go to a bar next door whereby, you know, there's the management's, there's security on the door, you know, the management don't serve people who've had too much and all, you know, like, I don't think people really are quite against censorship as Elon Musk might think, really. If you know what I mean. I think people, I know when things are being censored or when people are trying to control how I'm thinking, but sometimes I don't mind because it's a more pleasant space to be.
Yeah, and there's something there. One thing that Twitter gives me, which the others don't, and I guess Threads will offer the same, is I like seeing opposing views, like diametrically opposed views. There's people I follow on their Twitter accounts where believe that, you know, of course, that Bill Gates was injecting with the vaccine. It was a complete conspiracy by the government to control the world. And then there's other people, you know, I follow who, you know, are still wearing the masks and still believe it's a huge threat and believe in, you know, that you should have a vaccine every morning. So I like seeing these polarizing views on many topics again, and also in the war, because somewhere in between is the truth. Again, so I do like seeing extreme content as well that some people might want to see censored again, but there's stuff that none of us want to see really. But it is hard because what you have is, you know, these platforms are, you know, even at the moment Threads is 100 countries really. Of course, the EU don't have it at the moment, but again, so you have to have content moderators again in each country. And again, you know, even if you took Ireland again in the north, then you'd have to have from both communities as well. And how would the Twitter management or Threads upper management know all these things? And again, how far back history goes, trying to get to moderate the content in Israel,
Yeah.
Again, so it is difficult on a global scale, really, to do that.
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily what you say, but it's more a case of you calling me a name when you respond to me in your views, rather than the views itself. It's the tone of the debate and the conversation, and people sort of wanting the right to wrongly name a BBC presenter who may have done something or other. Do you know what I mean? And to want to defend that right to the death to wrongly suggest something, or one of the big conversations on Twitter was people wanted to be able to show that knifing incident in France, and they said Elon Musk shouldn't be it shouldn't be censoring that. You know what I mean? I don't want to see that. I don't want to see young kids being chased by a person with a knife. But the defenders of free speech wanted that to be shown, and I still don't think we've all really figured out what we do and don't want to see.
Yeah, it is difficult. Just like I said, it's multi-jurisdiction, on the internet, and it'll remain so for a long, long time, really.
All right, listen, lovely to have you on the show as always, Kevin. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Have a lovely day. That is Professor Kevin Curran, Professor of Cybersecurity at Ulster University.